Blackshirts and Reds by Michael Parenti. Section: Presumptions of Power. Ruling classes throughout the world hate and fear communism, not for its lack of political democracy, but because it attempts to establish economic democracy by building an egalitarian, collectivist social system, though they rarely come right out and say as much. This counter-revolutionary interventionist policy rests on several dubious assumptions that might be stated and rebutted as follows. 1. Quote, U.S. leaders have the right to define the limits of socio-economic development within other nations. Not true. Under no canon of international law or any other legal stricture do the leaders of this country have the right to ordain what kind of economic system or mode of social development another country may adopt. No more right than do the leaders of other countries have to dictate such things to the United States. In practice, the option to dictate is exercised by the strong over the weak, a policy of might, not right. 2. Quote, the United States must play a counter-revolutionary containment role in order to protect our national interests. End quote. This is true only if we equate our national interests with the investment interests of high finance. U.S. interventionism has been very effective in building neo-imperialism, keeping the land, labor, natural resources, and markets of the Third World countries available at bargain prices to multinational corporations. But these corporate interests do not represent the interests of the U.S. people. The public pays for the huge military budgets and endures the export of its jobs to foreign labor markets, the inflow of thousands of impoverished immigrants who compete for scarce employment and housing, and various other costs of empire. 3. Furthermore, revolutionary governments like Cuba, Libya, Vietnam, and North Korea were, and still are, eager to trade and maintain peaceful relations with this country. These countries do not threaten the national security of the United States or its people, but the overseas interests of global capitalism. If allowed to multiply in numbers, countries with an alternative social system, one that uses the land, labor, capital, and natural resources in collectivist ways, placing people before profits, would eventually undermine global capitalism. 4. Quote, the United States has a moral obligation to guarantee the stability of nations that are undergoing democratic development, but are threatened by revolutionaries and terrorists. End quote. In fact, most U.S. interventions are on behalf of corrupt and self-serving oligarchs and anti-democratic militarists who take power with or without the benefit of U.S.-sponsored showcase elections. Third world oligarchs are frequently educated at elite U.S. universities or end up on the CIA payroll, as do their police chiefs and military officers, many of whom receive training in torture and assassinations at U.S. counterinsurgency institutions. 5. Quote, fundamental social change should be peacefully pursued within the established order of nations rather than by revolutionary turmoil. End quote. U.S. policymakers maintain that they favor eliminating mass poverty in poorer countries, and that they are not opposed to the laudatory objectives of social revolution, but to its violent methods. They say that transformations must be effected gradually and peacefully, preferably through private investment and the benign workings of the free market. In fact, corporate investment is more likely to deter, rather than encourage, reform by preempting markets and restructuring the local economy to fit foreign capital extraction needs. International finance capital has no interest in bettering the life chances of third world peoples. Generally, as Western investments have increased in the third world, life conditions for the ordinary peasants and workers have grown steadily more desperate. End of section.